a town? What's a town? What's a town? It's the town of the bar. The Barbell.
Okay, so today my guest coming in from Victoria, BC is Brandon Wong, ex-AHL forward, played across a number of leagues in Europe professionally, and now is running his online coaching platform. So welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me there, Dom.
Welcome. So just a little bit about yourself. Growing up, what was it like growing up? In Victoria, what kind of things did you do as a child?
Yeah, I was born in Vancouver, but raised in Victoria since I was 4 years old. Most of my family's in Victoria, and have a brother and sister that were very athletic and both got scholarships with sports as well. Sister got a hockey scholarship and brother got a lacrosse scholarship. Just being raised in Victoria, it was let's say the laid back lifestyle. Being on the island here, things move a little slower than the fast paced the big cities, but as for hockey and living wise, my parents were always at the rink, watching one of us play. My brother played hockey as well, as you know. Meanwhile, he played lacrosse as well too. But yeah, always at the rink, whether we were playing ice hockey, roller hockey, and all that, and being able to practice the skills on the driveway, in the garage, backyard all the time. And also obviously the training part, being able to train, either at the gym or whether we go to the school or track and do different things that way.
So obviously very sporty family, and much like myself, a lot of it relied on my parents' support and things like that. So obviously your parents are very supportive of the three of you growing up and doing sport. Obviously, as being born in Canada, it's natural to play hockey. Did you play any other sports growing up, or was it kind of purely just hockey?
Yeah, I played a lot of different sports. I played baseball in the spring and summertime. I played golf a lot in the summertime. I actually played tennis as well. Played on the high school team, I think in grade 11, and enjoyed playing tennis. Badminton was actually also big, grade 7, around there, middle school. Just played a whole bunch of different sports. We'll say, I guess, for sure it'd be recreationally, but somewhat competitively as well.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, a lot of those sports is something that kind of comes up quite frequently, is like multi-sport athletes and play in a range of different sports growing up, and you can develop skills like badminton. Obviously, kind of agility-wise, you've got to be very quick and explosive, and it does all relate to different sports like hockey. You playing different sports will help you with your hockey, and vice versa. Your hockey might help you with like your lacrosse, for example. Did you find that playing different sports helped you in terms of becoming a professional athlete?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, everything I did translated to, I guess, professional sports and being a professional athlete. A lot of our, whether it's parents, family, mentors, coaches, saying that really always making sure as a hockey player or any other sport that we're focusing on the right things, whether it's hard work, listening skills, focusing, and all that stuff. And it definitely translates over to that. As I mentor these younger players now, all ages, and just kind of mention that it is important not only to practice their specific sport that they're doing, but also to practice other sports. And
Yeah.
school is extremely important. The way they're able to learn what they're learning in school, and
Yeah.
and also just the other sports, the skills of some things. Personally, hockey came a little easier to me than say baseball or golf. And when something is more challenging, that's when it gets harder, mentally for sure. And I mean, of course, there's like physical aspect to that too. But
no, I liked what you mentioned there in terms of the kind of other attributes that sports bring. Things like the hard work, the determination, the grit, the kind of learning to lose in a safe environment, which can kind of help further on in life. Really, really important kind of thing that sports and playing sports brings, that maybe some parents don't realize that, they see sport as almost a distraction from education, where it should be a kind of integrated part of developing good human beings, like teaching them discipline and time management, and being able to kind of, discipline is a big one. Like those different little things that maybe people underestimate that you can get from team sport. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, going on to your kind of professional career as an ice hockey player, can you talk a little bit about how that came about? I obviously understand you went to an NCAA college and played at university level. What was the kind of progression then from, say, high school through to pro?
So I basically at that point I was playing minor hockey all the way up until I was about 15 years old.
Yeah.
Then from there, we didn't have to play midget level hockey, it was called, back when I was playing. And I tried out for junior A.
Yeah.
Got cut. I believe I was the last cut, if not the last two cuts. But that's when I joined the junior B team, Victoria Cougars in town here, and played there for a full season. Did really well. Got rookie of the year and was the third top scorer in the league. Also, then I played junior A hockey, 3 years in the British Columbia Hockey League. I guess also known as the BCHL, and right out of there I got scouted and got a full ride scholarship to Quinnipiac University, which is in Connecticut,
Nice.
in the United States. And from there, which was also during that time being scouted by a whole bunch of different leagues and the NHL, of course. And I stayed there to play for 4 seasons. And and that's when I entered the pro ranks, and spent 9 years playing pro. Many different teams, many different cities, and just a lot of traveling around, a lot of learning. I guess.
Yeah. Was it kind of always a dream of yours to be a professional hockey player growing up, or did you kind of, was it something that you just ended up going into because you were good and you just had these opportunities, or was it something that from a young age you were like, I want to be a pro hockey player?
Yeah, I knew from a younger age, probably around, I'd say about 9 or 10 years old, I wanted to be a pro hockey player and play in the NHL. That was my goal.
Yeah.
It's a lot of these people, I'm sure a lot of kids have the same kind of stories, but sometimes when a kid says that, a lot of doubters is like, oh, it's really hard to do kind of thing. But for any kids that want to do it and they want to put this time, sacrifice, commitment, and work at it, if they can do it and get a good shot at trying to play in the NHL.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot that obviously goes into it, but if that's your goal or dream, then they definitely should try to make it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, like you say, I mean, it's a very, very small percentage of people that actually make it to the show, but kind of even playing pro hockey anywhere in the world is something that, to think about it, you're getting paid to do your hobby. If you love hockey, yes, it's a job and you've got to sacrifice a lot and work hard, but when you get there and you're playing hockey as your job, I mean, there can't be much better jobs in the world, right? But getting to play hockey and get paid for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as I now, I've been running my hockey company now, and kind of entering, I guess you'd say, the real world, working world. It's great to be able to play a sport that you've played for so long and that you put so much time and
Yeah,
effort towards.
definitely. Yeah.
And yeah, it's most of all is, I guess, all the friends that I have, and people I still talk with, and people I can reach out to now with what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely been a long journey, and definitely the kids that want to play, whether it's pro hockey or a pro sport and become a pro athlete, I highly suggest trying to do it. It's a pretty cool journey. Obviously,
Yeah.
tons of learning and things to figure out, but kind of what you get out of it, it keeps you busy all the time and
Yeah, for sure.
motivated towards something for many years.
Yeah. Now, going back to kind of the strength and conditioning side, when was the first time you were kind of exposed or kind of given given exposure to strength and conditioning work in terms of gym? Was it high school? Was it kind of beyond that? What age roughly did you start doing that?
For the strength and conditioning part, I would say I was introduced when I was around 12 years old, when I used to go to the University of Victoria gym with my uncle.
Nice.
I remember doing, it was lightweight, but with the machines.
Okay.
He'd take me there, and I think it was doing like 3 sets of the different exercises, which was pretty cool. I think it was definitely appropriate for the age that I was at, and being a smaller player and person, I think it was very beneficial for that, and also just to learn.
Nice. Were you you're obviously already playing hockey at this point. Did you go in with because you were playing hockey, you wanted to know how to get better, or was it just a case that, you know what, just I'm going to go in for general just because I want to go to the gym?
Yeah, I think the full reason wasn't exactly just to fully get better. Of course, I think I didn't really fully know what I was getting myself into, but I think my uncle had just brought me to the gym all summer long, and I believe we were going at least twice a week. I think maybe 3 times a week. And I just remember kind of following along with all the exercises he was doing. And obviously, it was lighter weight than he was doing, but
yeah,
I actually really enjoyed that part. And
yeah,
now, you know, the type of training has changed a lot, especially given on free weights and stuff. And I like, and I still believe in some of the machines and what they do. Yeah, so it was pretty cool to start that way when I was around 12 years old. I know there's a lot of players and parents that are cautious about kids doing weights, but if it was, from my point of view, I would start kids at a younger age, but definitely really low weight, whether it was just like a weighted vest or
for sure. Yeah,
something like a really light med ball or something to do squat. I mean, there's
like,
different ways to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I think by that time, and so as I that was around when I was in Pee Wee hockey, so I was 12, obviously going to Bantam when I was hitting, or there was hitting, and that's when I actually started with an actual strength coach. Was his name was Jeff Compton, and I had been injured. I fractured my ankle, and so instead of sitting around, that was a big point in my young hockey career, I guess, that he asked if I were to go train at his gym, and I was getting up at 6 a.m. to do the workouts, and I remember that being very beneficial to start off the strength and conditioning part.
Sure.
Yeah, I remember that part a lot.
So was that kind of like you would do the sessions before school, or was this during the holiday times or weekends, or was it you got up at 6, went to your almost like a rehab kind of session or SNC session, and then to school?
It was it was like all second half of the year, so it was after Christmas. I think it was around January on for probably 2 months, maybe up until the end of the season. My mom luckily basically woke up with me every every one of those mornings. I think it was 3 times a week, I believe, maybe 2. But I remember that doing a lot of the basic exercises, but with obviously a little bit heavier weight now that I was about 14 or 15 years old. And just slowly got into it and built muscle and
That's great. And the fact that, going back to what you mentioned about your uncle taking you to the gym when you were 12, I mean, a lot of places won't even let people inside the gym unless they're 16 or 18. So that's really good to hear that you were given access to that kind of facility. And like you said, children need to be doing some form of resistance training, even if it's like very lightweight. So what we kind of use, or what we term as soft resistance, so like medicine balls, resistance bands, sandbags, sandbells, things like this. Weighted vests, for example, is really important for them to kind of develop their strength. After you kind of went into the pros, let's go back to your university career first. Was strength and conditioning a kind of big component in university? I mean, like for me, not having gone to university in the States or North America, we always see, the big weight rooms, and it's mainly, I guess, the football players that we see on TV or in the movies and things like that. Is it like that in real life?
Sorry, what is it?
So like, the big weight rooms, getting, I guess, what's the experience like as an athlete in university?
Yeah, so I'll first go to when I started, when I was 12 years old with my uncle there. It was a University of Victoria. So that was a massive gym there with, whether it was machines or free weights. It was a huge gym.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's probably like double or triple the size of most gyms that people go into. But with the university at Quinnipiac, we had started out the first half of my first freshman year in the regular gym with like all the rest of the other students and some of the sport teams.
Yeah.
And that was down on campus. But about around December, I think it was, or January, they opened up the new arena for basketball and hockey, and we had our own gym there. And yeah, we had, I wouldn't say it was a big size gym, but it had everything that we needed. I believe it had probably about 5 or 6 double platforms on each side. Enough room for obviously us to do some Olympic lifting and all that we need to do. I wouldn't say there was too much running space area there, but could go outside for that stuff or in the basketball gym.
And what was the kind of average day like in terms of your training? And obviously you were there to study as well. So what was the kind of average day like for you as an athlete at university?
Well, at Quinnipiac, they'd been around for a little while in Division 1. So our, most days some students had classes at 8 o'clock. I think that was the earliest, I believe. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock classes, and whether you had to wake up earlier, our hockey practice time that was blocked off was, I believe, between 10 and 2 o'clock. Okay. Sometimes randomly with different studies or different majors, there were some players that had to come a little bit later on, like one of the days a week. They try and work that out. But so usually I think wake up around 7:30 in the morning. I think I had 1 or 2 8 o'clock classes throughout my 4 years, but a lot of 9 o'clock classes and then a 10 o'clock class. And then we'd have to get to the ice rink. I believe we practice at 11:30, and usually have to be there an hour before. We'd warm up, our dynamic warm up, and then we would practice. And for the players that come later, you'd have to work out after the practice. Okay. The players that can come a little bit earlier, you would work out before.
So you would lift kind of directly before the on ice session?
Yeah, we had about 30 players on our roster, I would say, maybe even a few more than that, maybe. So it was definitely training in 2 different groups.
Okay.
And yeah, we would obviously do that training, and then we would have classes after, usually 1 or 2 after that. Some of them in the afternoon. There was night classes of, I think it was around 2.5-hour classes, starting at like 6:30, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously the balance of hockey, whether it was practicing or workouts, and then the studies on the other side, and of course too is the socializing part.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And then obviously traveling to play games as well. And was it kind of, you play on weekends or?
Yeah, I would say about 85% of the games were on weekends. I think we randomly had sometimes played Tuesday night. I believe that was Princeton, but yeah, usually most of the games were on weekends, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. And then going into your pro career then, was strength conditioning a big part of the professional scene as well? I mean, obviously when you get to a certain level, there's only so much, I guess, performance benefits you're going to get from S&C, but then you're probably going to get more injury prevention benefits because you may be playing a couple of games a week, and it's difficult to fit in, I guess, too many strength sessions during the week. What kind of things were you doing then when you went to pro, when you were traveling around and playing?
Yeah, I remember in my first few years still trying to develop as a player, an athlete. So spent at least 2 times at the gym every week, if not 3. You know, I had a trainer in my off season, and he was able to give me some of the in-season workouts. So I had that, and also the difference of being a student athlete. We had a trainer that would always be kind of on us and creating our workout program. So we're in professional, you're just kind of on your own. Depending what level, obviously, the NHL has enough money to pay different positions for whether they're coaches or trainers and all that. And you know, in the NHL, they have a couple different trainers, I believe, sometimes to work on that stuff. But in the AHL, sometimes I remember being with the Hartford Wolfpack, and we had a new guy that had just kind of finished school. And he was working with us every so often. I don't think he was there every day, but
okay. So it's more like you either had to find your own S&C coach who would give you a program to work on, or you'd have to, I guess some athletes would maybe doing stuff that they themselves, essentially, if they.
Yeah, mostly in professional, you're expected to know what to do or what you need to do
Wow. That's really interesting. That's really
to have performance. Yeah, I mean, I guess on one side is you know, it's your job, so every player is different. So one coach isn't just going to be able to coach every player individually, but they can just kind of suggest what workouts to do. At the other side of it, though, is it's so competitive in the professional level. Everyone's fighting for different jobs and to move up the ranks. That you know, it's kind of it's like a dog eat dog, and weeds out the guys that don't keep up with it and that can't handle the pro life. You know, like they say that the hardest workers usually make their way up or hit their own potential ceiling. And that was a big change from pros, because even in junior hockey, you warm up together. Not always do you have to go to the gym together, but you know, find yourself with like 1 partner, 2 partners, or a group of you going. College is more everyone works together, whether in 1 or 2 groups, and you have a strength trainer that's right in there with you. And his job is to make sure
you're not hurting yourself, right?
doing it properly. And he's on you, kind of thing, to have performance. And just, you know, that's his job with the university. So in the pros, it's just kind of go on your own whenever you want, and if you need to, you know, build your muscle, or if you need to maintain, or some guys like to make sure they stretch, since the schedule's so heavy that it's kind of just know your body and know what you need to do.
Yeah, that's really interesting. For, like, I would have imagined that considering the money involved in pro hockey, that it would be the other way around, where the pros would have a designated coach or two, and then you know, to hear you go from like having a designated coach and working in groups here at university level, then going into the pros and almost having to do it a little bit by yourself. It's a little bit surprising for me. I don't know whether maybe people hearing or listening in might feel the same, but for me, definitely it's a little bit surprising. I thought it would be the other way around. But
Yeah,
go on.
yeah, it's definitely surprising. It was eye opening to me. I mean, just obviously pro hockey, and I'm sure pro sports in general is surprising to a lot of people, and how it is. Hockey is not individual sport like, you know, like some sprinters
Yeah,
or that type of thing. But I'm not sure how pro soccer is or pro baseball. But yeah, just
I mean, from my
it's
my experience in the UK, having seen the kind of the way that Premier League football teams train, for example, is they kind of go in the gym. They might be in smaller groups, but they all go to the gym with a trainer. Maybe have like a head S&C coach and assistant coach, but they all work through a program. Now it might be split through kind of different needs, or you know, some players might be focusing more on injury prevention stuff. Some might be focusing more on like being more explosive. You know, you're going to have the variations within the group, but yeah, they kind of, in the UK at least, they all go to the gym together or in groups similar to what you mentioned in university.
yeah.
Do you think that strength and conditioning has taken more priority in recent years with the development of the game? You know, it's faster, it's players are getting a lot stronger and more athletic. Do you think that they're not in terms of more priority over skill work, but do you think that there's been a shift more towards more players doing S&C and searching out for trainers themselves?
Do you mean like it's more important to have strength and conditioning, you mean, or?
Yes, yeah. So it's more important for players now to do more S&C work, not more than skill, but I mean more than what they used to do.
Um, yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, personally, I don't think it's really changed too much on how important strength and conditioning is. I've had that since, like I said, probably around 12 years old is when I was starting it.
Yeah,
When I was 12, it was more just summer workouts than actual in season. But I remember when we got to play around 14, 15, when I was playing bantam, we did team workouts across the street from our rink, twice a week, maybe once. And I could just tell the difference in season
yeah,
of how it translated big time. And then, yeah, just I probably started when I played junior hockey. I was very big on training in the off season, spring and summer. I just did it out of like interest, and I knew I wanted to get better at things anyways. But I remember in season, my mom just telling me how I should start working out in season when I was playing the BCHL, and I did that a little bit in my 18-year-old season in Powell River. We didn't have too many team ones either, which was surprising, but we would go. But in my 19-year-old season, I had a friend and my line mate, Brandon Campos, who actually had a really good junior career as well, and he would go to the gym a lot. Greg Dushinsky, actually another guy who was my roommate and he's from Victoria. They would go to the gym a lot, and they just had interest in a hobby in working out. So I would just join them because I knew I had to get going, and they kind of, yeah, they were just kind of, I guess, setting the pace and pulling me along for an in-season workout. And then
nice.
after that, I went to college, and I mean, that's when everything really started basically training. I would say at least 10 months of the year training, not on the ice, but like um, parts of it on the ice, parts of it in the gym and track and that type of thing. I would say even like 11 months of the year actually
So you
training.
were kind of training like a professional athlete from that age. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, around 19, 20 years old is when I was training a lot more. These days, the importance, I think everyone realizes the importance of that stuff, of strength and conditioning, but it's like these days is, I think it's crucial as long as the kids sort of have an idea of what to do. I know a lot in our area over here, what I would suggest, and it's even before I started my coaching stuff. kids just don't realize how much harder they need to be working. They think that just because they're sweating a lot means they're actually working hard. But it's like it's the grind of the workout, but also the grind of your daily schedules every week consistently, and that's what forms you as an athlete. I mean, you know, we go through as regular people to get through our days, and it's a grind itself, whether you're going through the ups and downs. But as an athlete, you're not only doing you're getting all that emotions, but you got to be able to stay on your stuff of staying focused, getting your rest and sleep, and also training, whether to build muscle or to get faster or whatever you want to work on and focus on.
And definitely, I think, like you mentioned, the kind of grit and going for the grind. I think I'm obviously a little bit biased because hockey is my favorite sport as well, but hockey players tend to have a different level of kind of grit than a lot of different athletes. You know, like you see players that will like block a shot, break their leg, and they'll skate off, or they'll lose their teeth and they'll go to the change room, get stitched up, and be back out, 2-3 minutes later. That kind of, it seems like hockey players are made from different stuff than a lot of other athletes. Now, obviously, that might cause a bit of controversy with some people from different sports, but from what I've seen and I've experienced myself, I just think that kind of determination and grit and the work you put in, ice hockey players, they don't want to be off the ice. They want to be back on. And sometimes that's a good thing, but then obviously sometimes players need to look after their bodies and make sure that, that they're fit for the following game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Not that I've played any professional other sports, but I think just being around hockey players, they just, I say, a different breed in their beasts. I mean, even being around like these professional guys that played in the NHL, AHL, being especially around, whether it's like the defensive players that don't score the goals, so they got to block the shots with their faces or their bodies and do things for the team to prove why they should have that position or role on the team. And it's quite incredible for those types of athletes. This is a different mindset and different character that hockey players have, and
definitely.
I'm a big fan of that. Where
I love seeing it as well. You watch some of the games, and there's players that it hurts when you block a shot with your foot, and they limp off a little bit, and then they're back on the next shift like nothing's happened, and then they take their boot off after the game when it's all swollen, and they play again the next night or like the second night after that, and they've got to get on a plane and fly, and it's amazing to see from the outside. So it's incredible.
It's definitely different. I mean, even watching some of the NHLers, one guy, I forget what his name is on the Philadelphia Flyers, but he used to block a few with his face and his teeth, and he didn't have any teeth left. I remember I always tell stories about how guys have broken legs and stuff and they're playing it. Obviously, there's a little bit that goes into that with, probably getting needles or kind of shut up something to freeze it. But still, like the fact that they're going out there to be able to play and all that is quite incredible. The sacrifice and determination in these hockey players is amazing, and you got to be tough to play hockey in the sport and be able to win those one-on-one races. Things have changed a little bit recently these days with these generation, but back when I was able to develop and grow up, you had to be mentally tough, and it was only for those that could survive, kind of thing.
Survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah, the fittest, and those that could escape injuries, and
sometimes there's a little bit of luck involved as well, but in terms of avoiding injuries, because some injuries will happen. I've heard of professional athletes getting injured kind of walking down the stairs or dropping like ketchup bottles on their toes and really weird stuff like that. But like you mentioned, in terms of the grit, determination, and we keep repeating that. But this question might be a little bit controversial, but in terms of the kind of combine testing that the NHL does, now, when you relate to the NFL, there's stats that show that the most athletic players are more likely to get drafted in the first round. And I think 2 out of 3 picks in the first round for the NFL are rated as elite or athletically elite in terms of their relative athletic scores. But when you look at hockey, there's no real kind of correlation or link between how they perform on the fitness side of the combine compared to their playing ability. Do you think that maybe it's time, or there's an argument to change the way that the NHL combine is run in terms of its physical testing? Because there are obviously a lot of different factors included when you come to playing on the ice. For example, you do the combine on feet, but not, you're not doing, when you think of football, American football, they're running. So running tests would be more relevant for them, and things like the push-in tests, like push-ups. For some positions in American football, it's important. But do you think for hockey there's some different tests they could do, or they should do, or do you think they should just do something completely different?
I don't know everything that they do is for testing, but I know there's some of the things that are good, or I guess valuable to be able to scout and evaluate. I mean, I know some of these kids at being that age, really young, that some can't even do pull-ups and bench press and that stuff. And I remember being that age when I was younger, when I went to the Canucks camp, and we had to do, I believe it was the bench press, it was pull-ups, it was the VO2 max and the wing gait, and there was other stuff as well. But I think it's one thing for what these coaches, scouts, and management are actually looking for. Just because you can do 100 bench presses doesn't mean you're a really good hockey player.
Exactly. Yeah.
It means you're really strong, probably, with your chest and that type of thing. But I think what they look for too is the, let's say, ultimate athlete, and in sense gifted athlete. Some people are just born with natural abilities and talents that really help them in those types of situations, especially like, if I've never really been a long distance runner. I've trained to be a long distance runner, but like there's some guys that can they can just kind of go for a run and do really well. I mean, my close cousin who played in the NLL, Carson Leung, he's one guy that I know, and there's many others though that they can just kind of do nothing, and all of a sudden they can run cross country races or long distance in pretty good times. It's quite incredible. I think it's.
You mentioned so you mentioned Carson, a lacrosse player, a very good lacrosse player. Do you think that the sport of lacrosse, in terms of field lacrosse, you need to have that kind of, because you run in a lot, especially midfielders will run a lot during the game, whereas in ice hockey you're kind of on for maybe like a minute, flat out, and then off. So I guess the long distance running, it's good to have a base of obviously aerobic fitness, but in terms of the relevance to hockey, do you think that there are other, something I used to do with some of the lacrosse guys is like the 300-meter shuttle, and we'd use that as a training tool as well as an evaluation. Do you think that the importance put on that kind of long distance running for hockey is necessary, or do you think it's one of those things that it's good for the base fitness and recovery, but in terms of the actual performance level, do you think it links in at all?
Yeah, personally, I think it's extremely necessary, given on my experience of what I've done. I didn't even get into the part that I was training myself after when I got hurt there with my fractured ankle, from probably around 16 years old, my whole junior career, 16 years old, so all the way up till I was 19, 20 years old, I was training myself. And honestly, that, as much as I wasn't educated with that, but that was when I was in my best shape, given at that time. I think I just was able to, I wanted it. I knew I wanted to be the best, whether best player that I could be, but also best player in that league, and stats wise lead the league and all that. So I knew what I kind of had to do, and I was just able to push my mentality towards my goals of what I want to do, and it all actually kind of paid off, which is why I think I mentored today, and in pushing these kids, like, do it. Just if you can suck it up and sacrifice how hard it is, just mentally just makes you want to quit and push and not really keep pushing those barriers down. But doing things myself, even when I was taught like the technique, and you can only be so perfect in a technique. There's no like, there's always different flaws and everything that I was able to personally do that. And so one of the things given on my build, I was always found I was a sprinter. I wasn't
Yeah.
like the best sprinter at all, but that was my thing. I was fairly fast, but
Yeah.
my long distance kind of hurt from that. I found as I went on longer runs, whether it was like 10K and try and get the fastest time that I could and push myself during that race. Physically, I was improving and helped me all season long I could feel it. It was crazy what I went through in my last year of juniors and my first year of college. I could just feel how I used that to my advantage.
Yeah.
And I was just able to push my mindset on what I need to do. Of course, it's important to have strength trainers to kind of push you in those areas that you want to focus on and improve on. But yeah, I just found that individualized, I knew what I needed to do, and I went and did it, and came out with a full ride scholarship and played pro hockey. So yeah, that part was good. And then, in the pros, I used to work out with a whole bunch of pro players from Victoria, many NHLers in our group. We had the Ben brothers and Tyson Berry, Ryan O'Byrne. And then we also have a lot of minor league players, whether it was like Greg Scott, Sean Robertson, Gary Nunn. We had a really strong group of us, and it's just pretty crazy to kind of look back on.
Yeah, that's great. In terms of, like you said, we keep going back to it, but the kind of unmeasurables, if you like, in terms of the combine testing, you can't really measure the grit, the determination. Yeah, you can ask questions and find out a sense of that, but it's one of those things that's really difficult to measure. So moving on then, your pro career, now you're doing Brandon Wong hockey, you're doing your online coaching and mentoring. Was it a kind of natural progression that you just like, I want to give the kids the knowledge that I wish I had at that age, or you want to kind of bring the next crop of players through? How do you progress from playing into the coaching side?
I basically, as I look back, I've always been a coach. I used to be the bossy young brother, or I guess the older brother, back when I was really, really young. I don't even know, like maybe 10 years old. I used to use the coaching diagram and draw our drills that we were going to do. But I broke out of that pretty quick, and I'd coach my brothers and cousins' hockey teams, my younger cousin's spring team. Just always found myself coaching, I guess, and I ran a couple camps on my own, even in junior A when I was playing for Merritt. I had one other friend that joined me, Jared Tootin. He did more of the skating stuff and I did the skill stuff. And then also when I was playing pro in my third year in Greenville, I had Lee Baldwin, who is from Victoria, and he was my teammate there. He was signed by the Rangers, and we did an adult camp. So we had a whole bunch of I guess you'd say adults, but some were a little bit younger too, come out. And so I've always been running camps and always been coaching, and as being a player and like a student in the game, just always kind of learning and dissecting it with my buddies and teammates and all that, and just kind of molded me into who I was anyways, I think. And that's where I see the advantages and where I can fit in I guess the hockey world, to be able to pass on to these younger players. I like to help them, whether at the young age or all the way up to the pro level or adults. and just kind of what I feel one of my strengths is I know what's next for them and how to do it. I put myself in their shoes and kind of push them a little bit harder than I feel that they need that little push. And so far it's been going really well, and they've enjoyed it. So something like this I had. And then I've always had many mentors, but now with all the resources and tools that we have now, we can do video coaching. We call it accountability coaching, and all these new skills as the game has evolved, and can teach these kids those things.
Awesome. Brings me nicely into my next question. If you could give a 12-year-old Brandon some advice or something that you wish you knew at that age, what would it be?
12-year-old.
So if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice.
Well, I guess, you know what, I think I did everything on the ice pretty well. I always gave her, I always knew I loved it and never had any issues that way. As for training, maybe if I knew to train a little bit younger, but I think I was right around, given on what we knew back then, I think I was right around the right age. But I think
that's a lot earlier than a lot of players will start training in terms of doing resistance, or I don't want to call it weight training, but that kind of training. 12-year-old is, I mean, that's a pretty good age, for my opinion, to start. But unfortunately, a lot of players are held back until they're 16, 17, 18. So
yeah, I guess. No, I think out this way, I'm pretty familiar with maybe even the States. They start really young. I would personally, from me, is I know I'm not certified or educated, but I would start even earlier with some lightweight. Like I was saying, I would start even with players that are 8 or 9 years old, just with getting the habits in and showing them what it's like, even if it's like really slow, like a regular, like a push-up, just show them how to do a real and push-up, whether if it's just one. You don't even have to do 5, don't even have to do 10, but just show them how it's done. Squats are fairly simple with just kind of sitting down and showing them pushing the knees up at that age. You just kind of show them at a younger age, like the good habits to it and doing that. But I think the number one thing I would do is put more effort into school.
All right.
I think
that important. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, not that you need to be a straight A student, but just I think I was just a little later on those types of habits with education and all that and studying. But as I've developed and gotten older now, I just see every day as learning and having to make decisions every day. Even if they're small decisions, given on the business and all that. But while playing hockey, I feel like I didn't have to make that many decisions like that. But I think just the habit of making those decisions were obvious. Like, you better go to the gym, or you should probably wake up earlier to stick handle, or shoot and do the extra. I think it was just always again, but now I think it's a little bit newer to me of actual. There's more to it, I think, than just being a hockey player.
And is there anything in your career that you found hard or difficult, or something that you wish you were better at?
Well, I mean, I guess maybe like some guidance, maybe just, nowadays there's so many guys now that are being able to give their advice and talk up, especially given at the pro level. I know that with our parents' generation, a lot of people played junior hockey, but there wasn't as much opportunity to play pro hockey at all. There's so many different leagues now, whether it's university hockey, like club. Those guys aren't going to the NHL, but they can definitely continue on with a few extra years while going to school. But I think there's just so much more opportunity to play, even travel overseas, and just make, I guess, the salary you make is you start in the working world.
Sorry, the audio cut out a little bit. The last sentence that you just said. Sorry.
It was just the fact that you could, some players, there's so much opportunity that they could go overseas make a salary that where you can get by, but also travel the world.
Yeah, and experience
get
different
that.
cultures. Yeah.
That wasn't probably going around when in our parents' generation. So,
Oh, for sure. And I think now the world is such a small place in terms of you can get anywhere in the world within 24 hours. So definitely like traveling is something that I love doing as well, and just seeing different countries. So we've had a couple of questions through from Instagram. So just a couple of quick questions. What are you doing at the moment to stay busy?
what am I doing? Well, right now, just trying to work on some of the services. I have the hockey homework program out right now for some players ages, whether it's 5 to 14 is the suggested, but I mean, kids at any age can be doing this program. I have a couple junior players that are on it as well. But obviously when they pay, we probably can put that money towards something else in their training. So that's why the suggested age is just 5 to 14.
Nice.
Also, just preparing for summer ice. If things can get going here with the whole COVID-19 quarantine and shutdown, that can go and players can start training on the ice to sharpen their skills and learn new skills, that type of thing. And also too, hoping to place players on teams and for next season if that's a go.
Nice.
But yeah, the big service is my online coaching.
And that's at Brandon Wong Hockey on Instagram. And what's your website?
Yeah, it's Brandon Wong Hockey on Instagram and just BrandonWongHockey.com website. I have Facebook as well and Twitter, YouTube, and yeah, just trying to offer all these services. And online coaching is basically not only coaching but consulting and mentoring, just advising these players to work harder and do extra, because some of them like to just be content with what they're doing or do what they're good at and what's fun.
Or what they're told by parents maybe.
And being that other voice too.
Sure.
The mentor, not sometimes we don't just listen to our parents all the time because they're telling us to do chores and those other things when we listen about hockey stuff. So just kind of being that other voice, I guess, is really important. I mean, I know from my playing experience and growing up that it wasn't just one person that got me to where I did. It was many different people, mentors and leaders that I looked up to all the time. I always found something good in each person and just kind of followed that. And that's the big online coaching part. And also too, I'm interviewing similar to what you're doing, players, coaches, and buddies that I've played with or against, and now whether they're in hockey or out of hockey, they're just giving back some advice for all the players, parents, and coaches.
Awesome. One more question from Instagram. What's your favorite pre-game meal?
My favorite pre-game meal? Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I would say probably just I don't know if it's my favorite, but my go-to is probably just pasta with chicken.
Nice, getting some good carbs in there, some protein.
But I remember back when I was younger, my mom, I don't know if it was a pretty good price tag, but I remember back when I was younger, probably around the 13, 14 years old age, when I even decided to do pregame naps at a young age too, and eat pregame meals, and I was eating tortellini before. I remember I'd start, I think we had like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock games in minor hockey. I'd be eating at like 2 o'clock, so it was really early. I knew I didn't like it having a full stomach.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So we're going to have to wrap things up here, but thanks very much for your time, Brandon. Next guest I've got on is Jeremy Hartman from Hartman Performance in Indianapolis. We're going to talk about his experience with ice hockey, his high school program, and his background in powerlifting. Now, he was a 6-time USA national champ, a 3-time US world team member, and he deadlifted 782 pounds or 355 kilos in one of his meets. So he's the next guest that I've got on. So thanks again for your time, Brandon. Guys, don't forget to check out Brandon Wong Hockey on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and his website. Make sure you check it out. Thanks again, Brandon, and have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Don. That was fun.
What's that town? What's that town? What's that town? It's the town of the Barbell. What's that town? What's that town? What's that town? It's the town of the Barbell.